Hello. It's been a week now since Silph's announcement that it's closing down at the end of the season. It's been 2 weeks since I've learned of the news. I I've been processing that. I thought I'd processed it, and then once the news came out, seeing everyone's reaction, it sort of set off the whole process again. So it's taken me a while to gather my thoughts about all this. Um, Sorry if this seems a bit scripted. There are bullet points I'm wanting to hit just because Uh, I want to try and say something that makes sense rather than just aimlessly rambling. Um, yeah, I I started with the arena when I met Lowry. I lived down the road from him, and he was the guy that posted the badges and community day check-ins on the Silph Road Discord, and he was heavily involved in the arena when I first met him. Um, I've been drinking the Kool-Aid since then and tried in that way. Yeah, the arena's always been what I needed it to be. When I moved to Leeds, I it was a way of making friends in my new home. Uh, there was a time when I was miserable at work for quite a while before I quit my job, and I would spend my days thinking about like, is it really worth running charge beams at Dosing Jungle Club? Like, what's the benefit of running water gun on Slowbro in the Sinister Cup and things like, can I really make Golduck and Muck work on the same team in Timeless, that sort of thing. It kept me it kept me going for a long time. And then even when the pandemic hit, right, like I was furloughed for 6 months. I was forced into a like my relationship ended up going long distance for 18 months, and for those 2 years, it really like the arena really gave me something to focus on, and that was obviously massively important for me. Um, True, like I was incredibly fortunate to be involved in an established community in Leeds in the early days where there were good players around who I could learn from. I think Elfidel, who I still play with in factions, taught me a lot, and so did Ace the Kid, who I think he was top in Europe when the arena rankings first came out, and then obviously as we continued playing, Miss Havana, Aero Bubble, V Tenacity, like played with them a lot, and I feel like everyone's level increased as as we kept playing more and more. And personally, like I got to the point where I would go to these big tournaments in London and in Paris, and I would go there feeling as if I could win, and I'd sort of put that level of expectation on myself, and that's really how I ended up going as deep into Silph as I did. Um, but like also there was a lot of cat herding, and we really did grow our communities, and we I'm so proud of the tournaments we used to run. Like we in our Toxic Cup, people travelled to Leeds 4, 5, 6 hours from uh, Glasgow and Oxford. I think people came from. And then like I always really used to enjoy going out and meeting other people as well. If you played in person tournaments in the north of England, you'll have met Hussam Dalil. Hussam and I once went to Sheffield for a tournament on a Saturday, and we saw someone powering up their Mewtwo on the train, and we spoke to her and convinced her to come to the tournament, and she ended up being the eighth player we needed on that day. Yeah, it's the so much work went into building those communities, and I'm really thankful it did. Um, in when the arena went remote, which I believe was Toxic Cup season two, the month previous to that in Rose Cup, I played 9 tournaments, and it was difficult to play lots of tournaments back then. I'd met so many people. That was the month I went to Paris, um, and so when we went fully remote, like um, I I felt my position was fairly unique as someone who was starting to meet people all across the country playing this game, but who also felt capable of winning these big tournaments. Like I felt it my responsibility to do things, to do something to try and keep the community together during the uncertainty about when we'd be able to go back into in-person tournaments, and to convince any players who um, joined the arena while we were in lockdown that yes, there is a community around this game. There is something fun to be part of. It's bigger than just uh, playing GBL. And yeah, I did the best I could to share my knowledge of the game and try and increase the level of competition around us. My my oldest videos are now 3 years old, and I think the closing of the arena is probably a good time for me to uh, say that this channel's reached its conclusion. Like I'm so happy to know that there's um, players who are new to the arena in the past couple of years who are now playing in-person tournaments in the UK, and those who are still new, but and those who are new but who aren't playing in person, they're feeling part of a community remotely. I think that's just as important, and I hope that I've played a part in that, and I like to think that I have, and that I've sort of achieved my goal with this channel. Um, it was never about thousands of subscribers or millions of views. It was about learning something new for myself and doing something for the community. So I'm really pleased with how of what I've achieved here. While while I'd take an in-person tournament over a remote tournament any day, like my position's also changed, and I've gone from the place of having this thriving in-person community to where I am now, where there's just no in-person scene, and that's given me. I mean, obviously, I always knew that remotes were important, but it's given me a newfound appreciation um, for the role that remote tournaments can play in the arena, and um, it's kind of it's kind of really shaping how I feel or still could fill or could have filled a need in the community going forward. I think having been in the different situations that I've been in relating to the PvP, um, I, I I felt like I was in a position to really do something good um, to help guide the direction, um, and that's been the hardest thing for me to process. Like it's difficult to argue that the state of the game over the past 2 years hasn't driven people away. Um, and you could also say that perhaps the arena's communication over the past couple of years, 2.5, 3 years, hasn't been amazing and or what you'd like it to have been. But I feel that the team running season 5 were starting to turn that around. You know, we were trying to listen to people. We were trying new things to try and make the arena in its season more accessible, and uh, it was an ongoing process. Um, we were listening, we were changing, but the rug's sort of being pulled from underneath us now, and we won't have the opportunity to continue that process, and that's been really difficult to take. Um, and I think for me now this means the end of competitive PvP. I mean, I've not been to play Pokemon tournament. I've never made it onto the GBL leaderboard. For me, it was Silph, and that was it. Like, Silph had meaning more than the competition to me, and now that's gone. I don't think I will be playing competitive unless there's something that can fill that void, which has that level of community spirit and engagement. So I think that's the end for me. I actually have a retirement video that's unlisted on my channel, which I'd intended to post after regionals in season 4. Knowing my history in regionals, I was fairly convinced that I was going to find a way to not win. And however, I did end up winning, and so I was like, okay, well, we'll delay this video till after continentals. because again, I was confident that I wasn't going to do well in continentals, and then I finished fifth. I wasn't sure that that wasn't enough to qualify me for Worlds, so I thought, right, we'll hang on until the Worlds announcement. And at that point, I had been dragged into the new team that was going to direct season 5, which again, it sort of pulled me back in. Like, this is it. There's always been something pulling me back to the arena, and that what that is has changed over the years, but there's always been something, and getting used to the idea that that isn't going to happen anymore is the thing that I've really struggled getting my head around. I'm obviously really proud of what I've achieved. Like, I must have over 70% win rate when you take the 4 seasons or 5 seasons combined. I've always done well in regionals, in qualifiers, in continentals, showdowns. Like, I've mostly been positive. Like, when the big matches have come, I've been able to step up my game and really play in a way that's made me proud of myself, both in solo and in team stuff. I mean, even down to things like grit score. Like, when grit scores came out, mine was 97, the same as like Tho and the Note and Doombook, and I don't think I ever saw one higher than that. So that was, I know it's just a little thing, but that was always something I was quite proud of as well, even though it's dropped since then. So yeah, that's me done. I was, however, pleased to see so much positivity around Silph's contribution on Twitter when the announcement was dropped. Like, even from people who have been quite openly anti-Silph or loudly in disagreement with decisions that had been made. I felt for a very long time, and I include myself in this, that often the work being done by Silph was taken for granted by substantial portions of this community. So seeing that people were able to respond positively to that announcement was quite warming, and I hope it means that Silph's going to be remembered fondly by everyone. I also think it's noticeable how little I've heard about it since the weekend, right? And maybe that's because I'm not massive on Twitter and I don't look around much, and maybe it's just the circles I've been playing in. But I kind of think that's somewhat indicative of where we're at as a player base. We always look at what's next and new ways of how we can play the game, and I think this sort of attitude has played as much of a part in fragmenting the player base as the state of the game. Like, Factions comes out and then people like Factions and don't play the arena, and then Gym Breakers comes out. It's like, well, I'm playing Gym Breakers on Factions now, so do I have time for the arena? And then, we have so many options now. I hope everyone can take time to sort of think about what they actually want from PvP. Especially anyone with intentions of coming up with something to fill the void that's being left by Silph. I think we have to, as a collective, we have to be really careful about where we go now. Like, obviously the easy thing to say or jump to is the easy conclusion to come to is that we need to replace Silph, but we also need to learn from it. We need to think about how it's changed over the years. What about those changes have made it less enjoyable, have made it more enjoyable, and what do we actually want from it? And I think that's really, it's a kind of privilege almost to be able to look back at all the hard work that was done by Silph and be able to build on it, and more importantly to sort of learn from it. When I think of my highlights from playing this game, I think of moments like seeing old school Papa turn up at the tournament in Leeds for the first time after I bumped into him and his son and his wife on a raid day. I think of moments like round 8 at London's Finest Sinister Cup, where I was having a great time with Elliot ex Penchu, picking up my spirits after going 5-0 and then losing the next two rounds narrowly and being able to finish that tournament on a positive note and having had a great time meeting Elliot. Um, I think of traveling down to season one regionals with friends and not knowing what's going to happen, what's the level of competition like elsewhere, and that whole speculation. And seeing guys like Lost to Lapras beat down Aerobubble, I think he beat a Magician and Hawkeye and Phil Jimbo in his first ever tournament and won 6-1 and only lost to Vitanasi or something like that. And then of course all the visits to the pubs in Sheffield and Leeds with people and enjoying spending the time with them way beyond the tournament ending. So whilst there are individual wins like that I do remember, there's very few of them. And like, when I think back about what I take from this, it's always the moments, right? And it's always the moments with the people that stand out. Well, I've spent so long talking to, I've spent to Dan Beckachew about, over the years about uh, chatting shit and that sort of thing, planning tournaments, winning tournaments. And yet, and we've played many times, and yet my overriding memory of Dan is the first time I ever spoke to him, where we were battling in the Rose Cup, and I switched my Probopass into his Swalot, thinking that I was going to win that game, and then he seen the look of joy on his face as he was rock smashing through my Probopass with his Swalot, and it's just stuff like being able to laugh about that together. That's, I mean, you see it a little bit with Play Pokemon, but I just don't. It just seems far more clinical doing it on a stage or whatever with people watching. Like being able to do something like that in a pub is, or a bar or in a park, is just, there's something special about that. And yeah, I hope whatever comes next, if something comes next, is able to recapture that sort of spirit. So yeah, I think this is it for me. I think there'll probably be one more episode of chatting shit about the Innocent Cup, and then we'll see. But to anyone who's watched any of my videos, to anyone who's been on them and taken part in them, I just want to say thank you for being here and and making me feel like I've been valuable. Whether that is the case or not, that's how I've been made to feel. So I really appreciate you being here. So thank you very much, and see you soon.